all of you. I want to thank the museum, the selection committee, George and Brenda, and all of you for coming tonight. And this is a great, great honor. And one of the greatest parts of it is you see my name with Roy Berry Seniors. We called him Old Roy. This is Little Roy over here. I'll tell you how I first started in polo. I came to Florida in '64 to go to junior college. This one right here in Lake Worth. And just by a freak accident, Don Beveridge became my uncle that year. My mother's sister married him, and he was operating the old Royal Palm Club in Boca. Now, not the one that just closed a few years ago, but the one on Blaze Road. And I got to know Don, ended up living with him and my aunt for a while. And he said, "Do you need a job?" And I said, "I sure as heck do." And he said, "Go out to the polo club and ask for Jack Carticella," and that's another story. And he'll give you a job painting stall doors. And he said, "Now I've got an old gelding there." Don had quit playing polo like a year before, and he had one old chestnut gelding named Sonny Boy. He said, "You go out there and paint stall doors, and when you get tired of that, find Benny Gutierrez and Howard Jones and ask them for a saddle and tell them you want to ride Sonny Boy and get them to teach you how to hit the ball." Well, that's how it all started. That's how it all started. And it's been a long, long deal, and I read somewhere that I've been in polo 54 years, going back to 1964 down in Boca. And that seems like a lifetime, but at other times I think about it and it seems like a blink of an eye. And I remember a lot of wonderful things and a lot of wonderful people. And as they mentioned, I was so fortunate. I wanted, from the first moment I was in polo, I wanted to play polo, and I wanted to play in the U.S. Open. It only took me 20 years. And thanks to the Ghost family, I had my chance in '85 in San Antonio. Steve Ghost came to me, and I think we had 7 teams entered, and he said, "Buddy, we need another team." He said, "You got to get some players, put a team together." And I said, "Well, I know Charles Smith isn't on a team, and he'd like to play." And I called him. He was in Dallas. He said, "There's a guy up here named Fauzi Dean. He'd like to play." And I talked to my friend Tony Capola, and I said, "You know anybody who play in the Open?" He says, "Call Paul Rizzo. He said he'd love to come to retirement." So we put that team together. That was a 26-goal tournament. We were a 21-goal team. We played against a couple of 26-goal teams, and we give them quite a battle. We didn't beat any of them, but in those days, you kept the score 2 ways. One for the handicap part of it, and another score sheet for the Open, which was on the flat. So when we go on the field, we're 5 goals ahead. Well, with that, we got to the handicap final, and by a freak accident, we did end up receiving a trophy for the what at that time was a U.S. handicap, and like they said in the thing earlier, they changed it to the C.B. Whitney. And there's one thing I want to point out. Today, the Hall of Fame, which is the consolation for the U.S. Open, that is a handicap tournament. And every year, if we need another team, I talk to some of these young players and say, "Guys, put a 21 or 22-goal team in. Get the 5 goals on the handicap, because then when you get to that handicap final, you're probably going to win that game against a 26-goal team." Of course, as we know, that doesn't always happen. Like they said, if I've done anything, it's managed polo clubs. I've been a polo club manager for 41 years. My first one, and talk about biting off a big fish, in '77, retirement needed a manager. A great old guy named Dutch Evinger was retiring because it was getting too big, and he told Steve Ghost, "You need a young guy." And I asked for the job, and Steve says, "You got any experience running a polo club?" And I said, "No, I really don't." And he said, "Well, I don't either, but let's try it." It worked for quite a while. And as they said, I was very fortunate, and I got to go to Santa Barbara for a few years. I was at Palm Beach Polo. I've been at IPC now for 15 years. And another great thing, a summer deal, and this is something that Hap Sharp and Harry Collins got me into in Colorado. They had Tommy Wayman and I come there in '88 to start what they called the Roseboro Polo Club. And that deal lasted for 28 years, and that was a great, great thing. It only ended a couple years ago. And I was there 14 years. I was still involved in it in the last 14, and a great gal by the name of Haley Bryan ran it the last 14 years. Haley's with me now. She's here somewhere tonight. And I want to mention one other great gal, and when this gal was a starving college student. I hired her one year, let her live in my basement, and I give her about $800 a month, and that's Melania Jones. And she worked for me on and off for 17 years. And all of a sudden, Santa Barbara offers her the big money, and she leaves me. What can you do? I want to talk about this group I'm being inducted with. This is really, really a special honor. As Roy said, I was close to his dad. I spent a lot of time in San Antonio in the late 60s and the early 70s with Roy and his dad. And I was a young guy. Part of the time I was in the Army, but I was at Fort Sam Houston and had a lot of free time. And Roy's dad used to come and pick me up when I got off duty. And he'd take me out to the Cray Brothers farm north of town. And he was very generous. He'd let me ride them 2- and 3-year-old colts. He had a lot of good advice. And them rocks in that ground were hard. But, you know, between him and Roy, I do think I learned something, and I really appreciate the berries. And you know, there's like 13 of them here tonight. They're like my second family. Roy and Elizabeth took me in, and in those days I really needed a meal. And talking about these people I'm being inducted with, when you talk about Sonny, you cannot say enough about that woman. I mean, what she did on the field and what she gave back in the last few years of her life is just amazing, and it's such an honor to see my name with hers. And then there's one more guy on that list. Ruby Doo. Now, Reuben is a great guy, and Tony said this a couple of weeks ago. I saw it in print. Reuben came to San Antonio, and I think it was in '81, and he'd been playing polo and training horses in California, and he was 4 goals. And he played on an open team, and he won. He went to 5 goals. In the next 5 years, he won the Open 4 times. Is that right, Reuben? I can't see you for the floodlights. How many? 3. 3. Okay, excuse me. I thought you were better than that. But after those 4 or 5 years, he was 7 goals on the way to 8. And I'd never seen a guy, he played polo, of course, in Mexico as a kid. I'd never seen a guy grasp polo like Reuben did. Last night, we were together and we got telling stories. And I told one about Reuben, but I'm not going to go into that story. How am I doing on time? Am I okay? Go for it. Well, the story last night, here's a short version. I was in Wyoming and Reuben's going to come up there and he says, can you pick me up at the airport? Well, he calls me and he says, where's Nebraska? I'm in Nebraska. Now, there's another time that Reuben had to fly in. We're in San Antonio, and I know Tom Ghost is here. Tom Ghost and Tommy Wayman and myself and John France, I think we're playing in the Silver Cup. And that deal was, there was a bracket in San Antonio and a bracket in Willow Bend, Dallas and Willow Bend. And when our win was done, they went up there. Well, it started raining in San Antonio, like it can do, and it rained about 8 days. And Willow Bend's calling us, hey, you guys got to get that winning team up here, you know. So I got down to where the team we're on, we got to play Matt Ghost, Reuben, Valley Aguilar, and Manuel Nava for Mexico. And one morning, Tom Ghost comes by and he says, I got it. It's not raining in Midland. I called him. We can go out there and play. So we just started loading horses. And Reuben, the Ghostes were hauling his horses. I don't think he had a rig at that time. At least it wasn't there. So Tommy and I go by his barn with a truck and trailer, and there's this little guy there, and we tell him in our best Spanish, we're going to take these horses and we're going to go to Midland, and Reuben's going to come there and play. And so we load the horses, and he throws a tack in, and we say, get your clothes. And he goes in the tack room, and he comes back, and he's got a paper sack under one arm and an army blanket rolled up the other, and he says, Listo. Well, Reuben took care of him. So we go there. It's 350 miles, but we don't know where Reuben is, and we got everybody looking for him. And finally, Tommy Wayman says, that son of a gun, I bet you he's in Santa Barbara. So we called Gary Wooten, and Wooten said, I saw him yesterday. And we said, get that son of a gun, put him on a plane. So we find out, okay, we hear Ruben's going to land tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So we talked to the polo club. We've been waiting on him 3 days. So Tom Ghost goes to the airport to get him. And Wayman and I and John Francie, the other guy on the team, we're in Chili's having lunch. And we come out, it's an hour and a half before the game, and here comes Tom Ghost and Ruben. And just at that moment, and I don't know how many of you experienced the beautiful weather in Midland, Texas, a thunderstorm hit a dust storm right over top of Chili's. And Ruben's standing in the parking lot, and we came out, and these mud biscuits are hitting him like this. And he getting on his Gucci shoes. And he says, Wayne, Newman, you guys are crazy. I'm in Santa Barbara, the most beautiful place in the world, and you bring me here. The world is going to end. We're not going to play polo. A half hour later, the sun came out. We played, and he'd been laying on the beach for 5 days. We'd been hauling horses, all his and ours, all over Texas, riding horses, and he beats us. He's been a great friend, and he's, as I say, he's been a lot of great entertainment. I want to talk a little bit about this award, this Eaglehart Award. I think it reads, it is given for lifetime achievement in the sport of polo. And looking back at that, it is not so much what I achieved, if anything. What this is to me, there was a lot of great people, a lot of wonderful people who were generous and kind, and they trusted me to run their polo clubs. They hired me to clean stalls or groom for them when I was younger. They hired me to play polo, and they bought horses from me. I accept this award as a tribute to those wonderful people who made this wonderful life for me. And some of them are over here, for 54 years. That's what it said, that I was in polo 54 years, and I believe it. They didn't know where I was half the time. My sister Karen's over there, and they didn't know really what I was doing. They knew I was playing polo, doing something with horses. And they always stood behind me, and they supported me. And they were glad to see me when I came home. And I want to thank them for being behind me. And there's one of them that's not here with us anymore. We only had him for a short while. And that's Jimmer. Thank you, buddy.